we are going to start international economics, and this is an undergraduate program that you people are doing in your third year, fifth semester, right? So most of you people have done microeconomics and microeconomics, right? So what is the need to do international economics? Okay, so you people are reading newspaper, magazine, watching television. So there is a means you people will be having some kind of understanding that no country is making everything on its own, right? So they are dependent on other countries. Okay, so what we are saying is that no country is self-sufficient in the production of own goods and services. Self-sufficient. Okay, so no country is self-sufficient in the production of goods and services. So when you are reading newspaper, magazine, watching television, you will be seeing that each country is interdependent on each other, right? So they are interdependent in terms of trade, in terms of culture, in terms of economic policy, in terms of geopolitical relationship. Okay, so there are many kind of relationship going on. So in international economics, we are going to study economic interdependency. Okay, a country must be interdependent on each other, right? So in international economics, we are going to look at this interdependency aspect. Okay, and then term called dependency. Okay, let me write it out. Where your geopolitical aspect and economic policy is somewhat influenced by foreign countries also. Okay, so we are not going to look at this thing. Okay, we are going to look at interdependency aspect, and there is one more term that you people uh, should know is semi-linear. Okay, it basically means reducing or meeting import requirement either through export or through import substitution based some industry development. Okay, like in electronics, if you look a decade back, okay, so most of the electronics that we are importing, say smartphone, okay, from other countries, now we are producing within India, right? So you want to become semi-reliant, okay, for that you want to reduce the import requirement. Okay, you can reduce through your export earning and paying for that thing, or you are making some import substitution based industrial development within the economy. Okay, so in international economics, we are going to study about interdependency, okay, aspect, not dependency aspect, where geopolitical aspect got influence from other countries, and we will look at e- economic interdependencies among countries. So starting from 16th century, there is a belief system, or you can say economic system. Okay, at that time, nation state is building up around 16th century. Okay, so there is a belief system that if a country export more, they will be more richer, they will be more wealthier. Okay, that belief system is called mercantilism. Okay, let me write it out. So mercantilism is a trade policy, or an economic policy, or you can say a belief system, okay, that say that a country can be more wealthier if it is able to export more and reduce import. Okay, so let me mercantilism. Okay, so it originated in the 16th century, dominated around in the 17th century. Okay, and by the end of 18th century, okay, there is a transition to more free market kind of economy. Okay, but still there is some element of neo mercantilism we can see even in today also. Okay, so we are not going into that thing. So what they are saying is that uh, a country can increase wealth by exporting more. Okay, and this belief system, okay, have country nation state to build up, okay, during that time, during 16 to 18, between this 16 to 18, this time period. Okay, so what is the argument, economic argument behind this thing? Okay, so according to Mercantilist, okay, wealth is given when supply is fixed. Okay, supply is fixed and it is measured in terms of precious metal. Okay, which is called bullion. Okay, precious metal. So when supply is fixed, take one example, it will be more easier to understand. Suppose there are two countries A and B. Okay, and in terms of precious metal, country A has suppose 100 unit of that precious metal, whatever be the unit of measurement. Okay, take that to be 100 in terms of gold and silver. I convert it into a particular unit. Okay, so that I can compare between country A and B. And in country B, let's suppose it is 80. Okay, so total weight of the world consists of these two countries, country A and country B, is 180. This is total weight. Total weight. Okay. So Mercantilist is saying that, okay, a nation state can be more stronger, okay, if it is able to export more and able to acquire more wealth. Okay, so suppose country B, okay, follow Mercantilist policy and it is exporting more to country B and limiting its amount of import, okay, or not importing at all. So country A has to make payment to country B, and it can make payment only in terms of its resource, is in terms of its wealth. Okay, suppose it has to make payment of 10 to country B. Okay, now country B have 90, country A went reduced from 100 to 90. Why? Because they assume that when supply is fixed in terms of precious metal. Okay, now country A become more richer, country B become more richer, country A is losing its wealth. Okay, so according to them, trade is a zero sum game. One country gain, like country B is gaining through export. Okay, this is positive by 10. Okay, and other country is losing. Okay, country A is losing by 10. Okay, by 10. So trade is a zero sum game according to Mercantilism. Okay, and there is a lot of things that you people will learn in Mercantilism system. Okay, lot of extortion is there happening. Okay, and they propagate war, imperialism on this kind of thing. So this is quite illogical looking. Okay, you are not only penalizing outside one, but you are penalizing your own people. Okay, so in France, in the second half of 18th century, basically this originated in Europe. Okay, so in France, in the second half of 18th century, belief system or economic theory coming up. Okay, that is called physiocracy, and they are saying is that real wealth is not in terms of precious metal. Okay, it is in terms of agriculture surplus. That is there in the agriculture sector. Okay, and there are lot of argument. Okay, just I am putting two important part of that argument. Okay, first is that at that time there is a lot of corruption going on, and the clergy and noblemen on that people that are richer. Okay, so they own 2/3 of the land and they are not paying taxes. So whatever taxes is collected by this nation state at the time, okay, it is connected from the agriculture sector. Okay, so that is why they are saying that real surplus is in agriculture sector, and they have propagated natural law. Okay, by natural law they are saying is that individual govern. Okay, when individual is deciding, let me put it properly. What is natural law? Okay, rule of right or wrong is inherited in people and not created by society or court of judge. Okay, so what is right or wrong, it is already inherited in people. Okay, it is not judged by court or society. Okay, because at that time there is a lot of corruption, lot of inefficiency happening, lot of things happening in the France system, where people are having not believe in the rule of court, because even every minister is corrupt at that time. Okay, so they propagated this natural no. Okay, and this natural no become the basis of Adam Smith invisible hand theory. Okay, invisible hand, that he has given that where market forces of demand and supply will operate automatically because individual working on their same interest. Okay, and it is due to this that market forces of demand and supply will lead to an equilibrium that will be efficient. Okay, so it is this natural law that he had utilized to give the theory of invisible hand, and he has published a paper in 1759. Okay, around that time, before he write the Wealth of the Nation. Okay, so Mercantile propagated this theory. Physiocrats said that real wealth is not in terms of this research matter, it is in agriculture sector. It is in agriculture sector that real wealth is generating. Okay, and Queensnet table is constructed. Okay, there is one economist. Okay, if I remember the name correctly, it is Queensnet. Okay, so one proper way of calculation is done to show that how real wealth is generated in agriculture sector. Okay, so during that time when physiocracy theories came up. Okay, and at that time around second half of 18th century. Okay, I industrial revolution start to happen in Europe and USA. Okay, it started around 1760. Okay, and Adam Smith work an inquiry into the cause and nature of the wealth of the nation, published in 1776. Okay, so in that book, okay, in that work of Adam Smith, he heavily criticized mercantilism. Okay, he said that trade is not a zero sum game. Okay, if a voluntary exchange is taking place, both countries can gain from trade. Okay, so he talk about many things. One of the things is that he criticizes this mercantilist policy. Okay, so let me talk about Adam Smith a bit. So Adam Smith, also called father of economics. Okay, his famous work, An Inquiry into the Cause and the Nature of Wealth of the Nation. Okay, in short, it is called the Wealth of the Nation. Wealth of the Nation, published in 1776. Okay, so he has seen, okay, that people that are making things from hand, okay, they are now making things from machine. Okay, and how division of labor, okay, increases the productivity manifold. Okay, so what he has seen division of labor need to specialization. Okay, and this specialization need to increase in productivity. And he also propagated free market economy. Okay, free market and no role of government. Okay, because the belief system that you have around that time, okay, government is corrupt. They are like squeezing the people in their country to take out more surplus. Okay, and they believe that if they export more, they will be gaining more. Okay, so that belief system is what they are against. Adam Smith heavily criticized that belief system. Okay, so if you are not, if you are earning more wealth in terms of precious metal, and if you are not able to make your own country people happy, then what is the use of that wealth? Okay, if you are not able to increase the welfare. So Adam Smith worked the wealth of the nation. Okay, when he look at the factory system. Okay, where division of labor. Okay, where specialization happened. So one work is divided among 10 workers, okay, and each worker is specialized in particular aspect, okay, of the final product. So in that way, there is a productivity gain, okay, and he believes that free market is the best way to arrange the thing in the market. Demand and supply will be arranged automatically, okay, and it is governed by natural law. So in his theory, okay, he talk about trade also. that if voluntary exchange will take place, okay, there will be a specialization, there will be more benefit of division of labor, because within country you have a specialization, okay, and when trade take place, okay, there will be more extension of market, more benefit of division of labor will take place, because there will be more production going on, so there will be more gain in productivity, okay, and there also he talk about free trade, okay, the trade should be free among countries to get the benefit when countries are trading, okay. So this is a brief introduction of what we are going to do in our trade theory, okay. Because the trade theory that you people have is the Keynesian and New Keynesian trade theory. In the Keynesian trade theory, we will be doing Adam Smith absolute cost advantage. Then Ricardo make an improvement on this theory, okay, and introduce comparative cost advantage. And then Hexagon also include one more factor and extended the Ricardo theory, okay. So we will discuss that thing in your trade theory. So before that, what we mean by international economics, the subject matter that we have. So in international economics, okay, we are looking at interdependency, right? And I talk to you people what we are looking at. We are looking at economic interdependency among countries, okay, and its effect on the economy, okay. So what is international economics? It is interdependency. What kind of interdependency we are looking at? We are looking at one economic interdependency, okay, among countries and its effect on economy, okay. So this is what we are going to study in international economics. So you people have three topics that you people have to do. First one is trade theory, where you people only doing the Keynesian one, okay, and then you people have trade intervention policy like quota. You have quota and tariff restriction, tariff or non-tariff barrier that you people will be studying there. Then balance of payment and the problem of adjustment in the balance of payment. So these three parts you people have to do, okay. So let's start with trade theory. So international trade theory is divided into two parts. One is traditional, okay. Or on trade theory, and second is new trade theories, okay. The main difference between own trade theory and new trade theory is that own trade theory is based on perfect competition. So there is a perfect competition in product and factor market, okay, and new trade theory is based on imperfect competition. Okay. So we are only doing on trade theory. Even in this one, we are doing three important trade theory, okay. So first one, you people will be doing Adam Smith absolute cost advantage, okay. So here you are taking two countries, okay, home and foreign, producing two goods, home and foreign, producing two goods, say cheese and wine, using one factor of production, labor, okay. And the reason for taking one factor of production, labor is that they believe, this Keynesian economists, okay, believe that value of a commodity is determined by the amount of labor embodied in that commodity, okay. I repeat again, value of a commodity is determined by hours of labor required to produce this commodity, okay, or amount of labor embodied in that commodity. So say price of cheese, okay. So what will be the value of cheese? Price of cheese is the amount of labor A, I denote by A, or unit of labor required to produce cheese, okay. And there must be some hourly wage going on, so then you will get the value. So you need to equate this with this price, okay, then you will get the value of the commodity. So that we will be doing it. So first theory that your people are going to do is absolute cost advantage. Two countries producing two goods using one factor of production. Okay, and when we are doing this theory, okay, we want to look at the basis of trade. Okay, so I told you that it is the means what we are looking at. We are looking at a model where division of labor is an important aspect that Adam Smith is talking about, right? Because when you have a larger production going on in a one trade, okay, and it is the differences in technology that will promote trade that we will be looking at. Okay, I will show that with one example. Okay, so you have two countries producing two goods using one factor of production, labor. Okay, and this labor is the cost. Okay, two countries producing two goods using one factor of production, and that factor of production determining your cost of production also. Okay, then you are using, let me check, producing two goods using one factor of production. Okay, two countries producing two goods using one factor of production, labor. Okay, and the reason for taking one factor of production is that classical economists believe that value of a commodity can be determined by the amount of labor embodied in that commodity. Okay, in other words, value of a commodity is determined by hours of labor required to produce that commodity. Okay, so hours of labor that is required to produce that commodity determine your cost. So you are taking cost directly. Okay, through labor value. Okay, then you have comparative cost advantage. Okay, here also you are considering two countries producing two goods using one factor of production. Okay, in absolute cost theory that Adam Smith has given, there is one problem. Okay, we are considering two countries, say home and foreign. Take home to be India and foreign to be USA. Okay, so and two goods, say rice and car. Okay, so we look at absolute cost of production of rice in USA and India. Okay, so if absolute cost of production of rice in USA is less than India, okay, so there will be no trade according to Adam Smith. Similarly, we will look for car. If absolute cost of production of car is less in USA than in India, okay, then there will be no trade. That means USA commodity wise in every commodity is more efficient in production of every commodity. Okay, and India is inefficient in the production of every commodity. Okay, so according to Adam Smith, trade cannot take place between India and USA. Okay, in absolute cost advantage theory, okay, trade is possible when one country is efficient in the production of one commodity and other country is efficient in the production of other commodity. Okay, so take same example. Okay, so here suppose look at this production function. Output is a function of, say, labor. So this is a technical relationship like production function that you have done, but here you have only one factor of production. Okay, so take this technology for India and USA. Okay, this is for USA, this is for India. Okay, for USA I write star. Okay, so this is output of wheat. Similarly, you can have technology for car also. The technology for wheat production must be different from car production, right? This is technology of car. Okay, car. Okay, so I'm talking about how trade is possible when a country has absolute cost advantage. So in one commodity, I am making India to have absolute cost advantage, and in another, I am making USA to have absolute cost advantage. Okay. And the first example that I have given, where USA have absolute cost advantage in on commodities, pretend to why you cannot have trade in case of absolute cost advantage. Okay. So that is the reason why competitive cost advantage is said to be an improvement over absolute cost advantage. So that thing also we will be doing. Okay. So let me do absolute cost advantage thing first. Okay. So suppose India is able to produce wheat. Okay. Say 10 unit of wheat, whatever be the unit of measurement. Okay. Say bushel it in measure. Okay. So India is able to produce 10 unit of wheat by employing less hours of labor. Okay. And USA is producing that 10 unit of wheat by requiring more hours of labor. Okay. So India is producing wheat by employing less hours of labor, means technology of India is better than technology of USA when it is producing wheat. Okay. Absolute cost advantage you can look in two ways. First is produce same at less labor hours or less labor cost. Okay. Produce more at same labor cost, or same labor hours, that is correct. Suppose India employ labor for say 20 hours, USA employ for 20 hours. Okay. India is able to produce 20 unit of wheat, USA is able to produce 10 unit of wheat. So both country employs same hours of labor. Okay. Same hours of labor, not same labor hours. Okay. Same hours of labor. Okay. But India is able to produce more wheat than USA. Okay. Or you can say that produce same. At, like India is producing 20, USA is producing 20. But produce same. Suppose India is producing 20, USA is producing 20. But hours of labor required in India is less than USA. So India has better technology in the production of wheat. Okay. Take the second case. Okay, car production. So in this case, suppose India is taking more labor hour to produce car than USA. Okay. Suppose USA is taking 2 hours of labor to produce one car. India is taking 4 hours of labor to produce one car. Okay. So technology is better in USA than in India. So USA has absolute cost advantage in the production of car. Okay. Like India is producing 20 unit of wheat by using 10 hours of labor. USA is producing 20 unit of wheat by using 20 hours of labor. Right. So USA is using more labor than India to produce same output. Okay. So it is inefficient in the production of wheat. So in that case, trade will be possible between India and USA, and it is due to differences in technology. Technology in India is better in case of wheat production. Okay. Technology is better in USA in case of car production. That is why trade is possible between India and USA in case of absolute cost advantage. Okay. So a country can have absolute cost advantage when it is able to produce more at same labor hours, or it is able to produce same at less labor hour. Then it will have absolute cost advantage. Okay. And if it is not able to do both, okay, if USA is able to produce both wheat and say car, okay, at less labor hour, then it is not possible to look at this absolute cost wheat production in USA and wheat production in India and say that trade can be possible. car production in USA and car production in India and say that trade is possible. Okay, so we will do that with example also later on. So it is the differences in technology that give rise to trade. But according to Adam Smith, if USA is efficient in the production of own goods and India is inefficient in the production of own goods, trade is not possible. This is what contested by Ricardo, and he said that even a country is inefficient in the production of own goods, okay, a country can have can be efficient in the production of own goods, okay, but it cannot be efficient in the production when we look at comparative cost. In a two goods case, okay, I am talking about two goods, not generalizing this thing, okay. So if a country has comparative cost advantage in one goods, then it must necessarily have comparative disadvantage in the production of other goods, okay. So even if a country is inefficient in the production of both goods, trade is possible between efficient country and the country that is inefficient in the production of both goods, okay. So this is the contribution of Ricardo that we will talk about, but we will use the opportunity cost concept, okay. When we will doing it, we will use opportunity cost concept. And here it is differences in technology that give rise to trade, okay. Here we will be assuming some of the classic assumptions there, like factor will be immobile within the country, mobile within the country. That means it can freely move from one good production to another good production, okay, but it is immobile across countries, okay. Taste and preference must be same because the country that we are taking, okay, it is of the same size, okay. So taste and preference of the country must be same. There will be no transportation cost. Perfect competition is there in factor market and product market, okay. So on these are classic assumptions that we are working on, okay. That will be there. Then over this, and in both cases what we will see is that there will be a gain in trade, okay. In the mercantilist system, trade is a zero sum game. If one country gain, then the other country is a loser, okay. In absolute cost advantage, okay, there will be a gain in trade that we will look at through example. In comparative cost advantage also, there will be a gain in trade, okay. And here there is one additional thing is that even a country is inefficient in the production of own goods, okay, it is possible to have trade with that country and both country can gain from trade, okay. Then you have Hexa on freedom, okay. So before that, what we are saying that it is the differences in technology, okay, that give rise to trade, and comparative cost advantage is an improvement over Adam Smith absolute cost advantage. In Hexa, what we are doing is that we are taking same assumption, okay, and we are also assuming there is one more assumption is that technology is same, okay. Now the basis of trade in this theory will be the differences in factor abundance, okay. So here we have two countries, say home and foreign, producing two goods, say X and Y, using two factor production. Before we have one factor production, we are using neighbor theory of value. Now we are using two factor production, okay, capital and neighbor. So if a home country is factor abundance, okay, and like say neighbor, it is neighbor abundance country and using neighbor intensively in the production process. So here n by k, this ratio or this proportion, okay, will be more than foreign country, okay. So we can look at factor abundancy, okay, in physical term, or we can look it in terms of price, okay, or wage intern ratio. So wage intern ratio, since neighbor is abundant in home country, so wage intern ratio, this ratio will be less than foreign country, okay. So here in this theory, okay, before trade, the country which uses that factor intensively, they are earning less, okay, because it is abundant in that country, and the factor that is cut is earning more, okay. So when trade will take place, basically a country will trade for the commodity which has abundant factor. So home country has neighbor abundant factor. Suppose X is neighbor intensive commodity. Okay. So it will export more of this neighbor intensive commodity. Similarly, foreign is more capital intensive country. So it will export Y quantity to country home. Okay. So in this way, what will happen? When home countries start to export this commodity, the supply will fall down. Okay, you are exporting part of your X production to other country. Okay, so when supply start to decrease, okay, this wage intensity start to rise. Okay, because price start to rise, because you when supply start to fall, price start to rise, so wage will start to rise, wage ratio. So the abundant factor will start to gain. Okay. Similarly, you are importing this capital intensive commodity. Okay. So what is happening in the home country when you are start to import this capital intensive commodity? Okay. The supply of this capital intensive commodity is started to go up. Okay. When it is started to go up, the price of this capital intensive commodity Y will start to fall. Similarly, the price of that factor will start to fall. So scarce factor is going to lose, okay, in home country, and the abundant factor will gain in home country. Similarly for foreign country. So what is the conclusion here is that when trade takes place, there will be some gainer, like abundant factor will gain due to trade, and there will be some loser, like scarce factor will be loser. Like in home country, it will be the owner of capital. In foreign country, it will be neighbor. Okay, because in foreign neighbor is scarce factor. Okay, so this will be the thing that we will be doing in Hexagon theorem. Okay. So this you people have in your syllabus. Then there is one more that is not in your syllabus, specific factor model. Okay, specific factor model. Okay, so you have rice production and machine production. Okay, so for rice production, NAND is specific factor. I did not by NAND, and neighbor is common factor. Okay, for machine, capital is specific factor and neighbor is common factor. Okay, so this is one more modeling that you people can do. So in your syllabus you have these three modeling. Okay, and there are some extension of Hexagon theorem that you people have to do. So we will start with absolute cost advantage. Okay, so in the next section we will do absolute cost advantage. Then we will look at comparative cost advantage. Okay, and after that, in the next lecture, I will cover Hexagon theorem. Okay, take down notes. Okay, and we will do introduction part and then the marketingist view. Okay, and after that, I will be providing you people notes of absolute cost advantage. Okay. So first slide, introduction. So write down. If we look at newspaper, TV, magazine, we will find that most of the countries are interdependent. By interdependent, I mean mutually dependent. Mutually dependent. Okay. If we look at newspaper, TV, magazine, we will find that most of the countries are interdependent on each other, and some are dependent on others. Therefore, we can say that no country is self-sufficient in the production of own goods and services. Therefore, we can say that no country is self-sufficient in the production of own goods and services. Full stop. In fact, countries are interdependent on each other. Okay. Change the paragraph. Right. Change the paragraph. Then write. In international economics, we study the economic interdependency between countries. in international economics, we studies the economic interdependencies between countries and its effect on economy. Okay, full stop. The question is whether the trade is beneficial or not for countries involved in trade. Okay, the question is whether it is beneficial for countries or not that are involved in trade. Okay, question marks. So the trade theory that you people are doing is Keynesian theory. Okay, and there we will talk about this mutually dependent thing. Okay, so here the argument that you people will be getting is that trade is beneficial for both countries. There is a gain in trade. Okay, and this argument is basically a reaction that is coming from this Keynesian economics. Okay, because the international trade system that you have preceding this Keynesian thought. Okay, they believe that trade is a zero-sum game. Okay, and you require a government intervention when you want to gain. Okay, from trade you can gain money only when you have export surplus, and through that you can gain. And trade is a zero-sum game. It is the Keynesian economics starting from the work of Adam Smith that we came to know that trade is not a zero-sum game. Both countries can gain from trade. Okay, and this argument is not valid for developing country because if we look at the nature of the commodity, okay, like look at primary commodity and manufacturing commodity, okay, the countries that, especially developing countries that are producing the primary commodity, the terms of trade, price of export over price of import, okay, is deteriorating over a period of time. So that you will learn when we doing Trevisan hypothesis. Okay, but for this course, what we are doing Keynesian framework. Okay, in that trade is beneficial for both countries. Okay, and in the hexagon, the new Keynesian framework that you will be looking, there will be some gain and loser, but overall trade is beneficial for both countries. Okay, next heading is second one, the mercantilist view of trade. Mercantilist view of trade. Okay, right? Economics as an organized science. Let me check recording. Okay. Economics as an organized science originated with the publication of The Wealth of the Nation by Adam Smith in 1776. However, writing on international trade preceded PICDD. Okay, writing on international trade preceded this date in countries such as England, Spain, France, Portugal, and the Netherlands as they develop into modern nation state. Okay, as they develop into modern nation state. So from feudal system, you have a ruler that are building up modern nation state. Okay, for that they require resource, and they some people at that time, mainly bankers. You have what you say that thing. People that are making laws, okay, philosopher, merchant, all these people are writing pamphlet. Okay, how this power can be consolidated. Okay, and how the ruler can hold on this power and make the nation stronger. Okay, so it is based on that philosophy. So if we look at this mercantilist philosophy from that perspective, that we have to make ruler stronger. Okay, and that can be done only when ruler has more wealth. Okay, so that it can win more armies, control the within internal, it can have control. Okay, also they can build navies and can have colonies so that they can have market for all the goods that is produced for exporting and earning bullion from this kind of market. Okay, so they promote imperialism also. Okay, So economics as an organized system originated with the publication of The Wealth of the Nation by Adam Smith in 1776. However, writing on international trade preceded, okay, means it is writing is going on before Adam Smith work. Okay, you have physiographic view also that I have discussed earlier. However, writing on international trade preceded this date in countries such as England, Spain, France, Portugal, and the Netherlands. Okay, as they developed into modern nation state. Starting from 16th century and specifically during 17th and 18th centuries, a group of people consisting of merchant, bankers, government officials, and philosophers wrote essay and pamphlet on international trade that advocated an economic philosophy known as mercantilism. Okay, I repeat again. Starting from 16th century, specifically during 17th and 18th century, a group of people consisting of bankers, merchants, government officials, and philosophers wrote essay and pamphlet. Pamphlet is mean writing. Okay, wrote essay and pamphlets. Here you can have H. Okay, PAMPHNETS. Okay, wrote essay and pamphlets on international trade that advocated an economic philosophy known as mercantilism. Okay, next paragraph. The mercantilists were writing primarily for ruler, okay, and to enhance national power. So basically, what they are writing for ruler, okay, and when they are writing for ruler, they are also beneficent because they are saying that if we do more trade, we will be having more bullion. Bullion means gold and silver, okay. The mercantilists were writing primarily for ruler and to enhance national power with more with more gold and other precious metal, with gold and other more precious metal, with more gold and other precious metal, ruler could maintain larger and better armies. Ruler could maintain larger and better armies and navies. Okay, I repeat again. With more gold and other precious metal, ruler could maintain larger and better armies and navies, and they can use these navies, okay, to acquire more colonies. Okay, and this ruler can use these armies and navies to acquire more colonies. Okay, according to them, that means mercantilists, a country can grow more richer and powerful by exporting more than its import. Okay, according to them, a country can grow more richer and powerful by exporting more than its import. The resulting export surplus would then be settled by an inflow of bullion of precious metal. Okay, so when you have export surplus, other country has to pay that thing, and that they can pay through bullion. Bullion or means precious metal. Okay, write it down again. I am repeating that thing. According to them, a country can grow more rich and powerful by exporting more than its import. The resulting export surplus that we are going to have, okay, would then be settled by an inflow of bullion of precious metal, primarily gold and silver. Okay. So at any point in time, they are saying that at any point in time, the supply of bullion is given, means the quantity of this precious metal is given. Okay. Since one nation could not simultaneously have an export surplus, I repeat again, at any point in time, the supply of bullion, that is gold and silver, is given, comma, since one nation could not simultaneously have an export surplus, so one nation could gain only at the expenses of other nations. Okay, what they are saying that every country cannot have export surplus. Okay, if some country has export surplus, then other country must have uh, more import than they export. Okay, so one country cannot have export surplus, and the supply of this precious metal is given. So a country can gain only at the expense of other. Okay, they so one nation could gain money at the expense of other nations. Okay, full stop. So trade is a zero sum game. So if a one nation gain, okay, through export surplus, other nation is losing through this trade deficit. Okay, because the amount of this precious metal is given, and I have given you the example. So just remember the example, and it will be easier to like understand this theory. Then right, they advocated strict government control of on economic activities. They advocated strict government control of on economic activity and believed that a nation could gain in trade only at the expense of other nation. Okay. The idea of next paragraph. The idea of Adam Smith, Ricardo, and other classical economists can best be understood. The idea of Adam Smith, Ricardo, and other classical economists can best be understood as a reaction to the mercantilist view on trade and on the role of government. Okay. One stop. According to them, like according to this classical economist, trade since countries are mutually interdependent, you can say mutually dependent, it means interdependent. Okay, since countries are mutually dependent, trade promotes division of labor. Increase specialization, productivity, and without government intervention, that is free market. If free market need to work, then it creates gain for on countries involved in the trade. Okay. So in the next section we will be doing absolute cost advantage. Okay, and after that we will be doing competitive cost advantage. Now we move to look at absolute cost advantage. Okay, so Adam Smith is of the view that a country will trade only when it will gain from trade. Okay, so he is of the view that there will be a voluntary trade. Okay, voluntary means you are not forced. Okay, when you are not forced and you are voluntary trade, country will trade only when it will gain something from trade. Okay, so you have domestic trade within the economy, you have trade, right? So when you are expanding trade to international border, okay, when you are going to trade with other countries, so you will voluntarily enter into trade only when there is a gain for you. Okay, and there is no forceful thing. Okay, like you are being made colony, then you necessarily have to do trade. Okay, so in Adam Smith formulation, okay, there is a interdependency among countries. Okay, that means mutually dependent countries are mutually dependent, and they will enter into trade only when there is a gain from trade. Okay, and second thing that he talk about is that he talk about absolute cost. Okay, and absolute cost he look at commodity. Okay, look at the cost of a particular commodity. Okay, if a country is efficient, or the absolute cost of production of that commodity is low in one country than it is in other country, then that country has absolute cost advantage. Okay, so like I have given you the example, like in India is producing wheat, output is a function of labor, and it is based on labor theory of value. Okay, on the classical economics formulation. Okay, value of a commodity is determined by the amount of labor embodied in that commodity. Okay, and there is only one factor. Okay, one factor of production. So whatever cost you have is a cost to labor. Okay, so take this as wheat. Okay, output of wheat. Similarly, this is for USA. I am writing star. This is output of wheat in the USA. Okay. So I talk in the introductory part that India is more efficient in the production of wheat. Okay, and we can define absolute cost advantage in two ways. One way is that India is able to produce more for the same labor hours than USA. Okay, suppose India is able to produce 20 quintal of wheat. 1 quintal is equal to 100 kg. Okay, 20 quintal of wheat. Okay, 20 quintal of wheat in 100 hours of labor. Okay, 100 hours of labor. Okay, and USA is able to produce 10 quintal of wheat in 100 hours of labor. Since labor is the only factor of production, okay, so we only have to consider labor cost. And if you remember that we are working in a simplified economy, two countries producing two goods using one factor of production. Two countries, home and foreign. Home I have taken India, foreign I have taken USA. Producing two goods, rice and car, using one factor of production, labor. Okay, so we will determine, okay, cost with respect to labor only. Okay, there is only one factor of production in this model. Now I am defining absolute cost. Okay, so you are able to produce more for the same cost, same hours of labor. Okay, then you have absolute cost advantage in the production of wheat. Okay, or you are able to produce same 10 quintal of wheat. Okay, by using less hours of labor. So in order to produce 10 quintal of wheat, India requires only 50 hours of labor. Okay, and it's required 100 hours of labor. Okay, so how you will define absolute cost? You can say absolute cost advantage. A country has absolute cost advantage when it is able to produce more for the same cost. Okay, or it is able to produce same for lower cost. Okay, because hours of labor required to produce this 10 quintal of wheat is lower in India. Similarly, you can look for car production. Okay, so for car production, I can write this as like this. Okay, I take this to the car. Okay, so instead of like India is able to produce wheat, I remove it. So if I devote my entire labor hours, 100 hours of labor, India is able to produce only 10 cars. Okay, this is quantity of car. Okay, and if I devote 100 hours of labor in USA, okay, if USA is devoting 100 hours of labor, it is able to produce 20 car. Okay, so here USA is able to produce more. USA is more efficient because it is able to produce more. It has absolute cost advantage. Okay, or the cost of producing this car is less here than in India. So USA is able to produce more car. Okay, for the same hours of labor, right? So it has absolute cost advantage in the production of car. Other way we can look at, if it's producing 10 car, it requires only 50 hours of labor. Okay, whereas India required 100 hours. Okay, so if it is producing same quantity, okay, hours of labor required is less. Okay, so it is more cost efficient in the production of car. Okay, so this is the way we define absolute cost advantage for countries. Now every theory that we people are doing, let me check recording. Okay, so every theory that we people are doing is based on certain assumption. Okay, most of the assumption I think it will be clear when we will be doing more. Okay, but let me put it here, then it will be easier for you people to visualize. Okay, under what restriction we are doing this theory and how gain from trade arrive at. Okay, so from this example, it is clear that labor is not homogeneous. Okay, labor productivity differ. When I am writing output is a function of labor. Okay, so when in India is able to produce more rice, okay, by employing 100 hours of labor, okay, than USA, then labor productivity differ. Labor is not homogeneous in both countries. Labor differ, and this is a production function, technical relationship. So it is a differences in technology, okay, that give rise to more output in India in terms of rice than USA. Similarly, in USA, you have more output in car because neighbor is not homogeneous. Okay, so this is one of the important assumption. Okay, that give rise to trade in the Adam Smith model and also in the Ricardo model. Okay. So first assumption that in the own trade theory that we are doing, okay, is that there is a perfect competition in factor and product market. Okay, so assumption. Perfect competition in product and factor market. Okay, the price is given. Okay. Second is no transportation cost. No transportation cost. When trade takes place, we are considering that transportation cost to be zero. Okay. So it is not an important aspect in determining pattern of trade. Okay. Third, taste and preference is same. Okay. If India has no taste for car, if India don't want, then trade will not take place. Okay. So taste and preference is same in both countries. Okay. Fourth, it is there is only one factor of production, neighbor. Okay. Only one factor of production, neighbor. Okay. Fifth, this theory is based on neighbor theory of value. Neighbor theory of value. Okay. And here we are taking that value of a commodity is determined by the amount of neighbor embodied in that commodity. Okay. And then you have taste and preference, no mobility. Yeah. Factor is mobile within country. Factor of production, we have only one factor of production is mobile. It can move freely within country, but immobile between countries. Okay. So if a factor is more efficient in India, okay, it is not that that factor will move to USA. Okay, we are talking about neighbor. Okay. So factor can move from one sector to another within India, like from rice production to car production or from car production to rice production, but it will not move to other countries. Okay. Then you have neighbor is not homogeneous. Isoquantity. Neighbor is not homogeneous in both countries. Okay. Factor endowment is same. Okay. We are taking 100 hours of labor. Okay. So in 100 hours, how much India is able to produce, how much US is able to produce. Okay. That we are taking. And then you have so unit labor requirement like let me write here amount I write ANC. Okay. Amount of labor required, interpretation of this thing, amount of labor required to produce say rice. Okay, I just write I. Okay, for any commodity. This is what amount of labor required to produce commodity I. Okay, is fixed. This term is fixed. Okay, so this term we will be using in Ricardo formulation also. Okay, so amount of labor required to produce each commodity is fixed. Okay, in both countries, and it is different. Why? Because labor is not homogeneous. So amount of labor required to produce each commodity is fixed in both countries, and it is different because labor is not homogeneous. Okay. Then you have, since amount of labor required is fixed. Okay. So there is a constant return to skin concept. Okay. This is 6, 7, 8, 9. Constant return to skin. Okay. So it basically is saying that percentage change in output must be equal to percentage change in input. Okay. So when you double the input, output will also double. Okay. So if there is a 10% change in input, output will also change by 10%. Since your input requirement is fixed, okay, so this will hold constant return to scale. Okay. So you have constant return to scale. So size of the production doesn't matter. Okay. It can be larger or smaller, it does not matter. Okay, in this case. Then one more assumption, full employment. Okay, there is full employment in the economy. Okay? So these are some of the assumptions that we will be uh, taken as given. Okay, when we are working on this model. So these are the important assumptions that you people have to remember, that this theory will hold. Okay, based on this assumption. Okay, so let me give you one example, then this thing will be clear, that how two country will gain when there is a trade. Okay, okay, let me keep this. Okay, now, so I have taken India and USA. Okay, this is autarky system. Okay, Kuno's economy of before trade. Okay, let me check recording. Okay, autarky of before trade system. Okay, and we have rice and car. Rice and car. Okay, here. So right now I'm writing hours of labor required to produce same output. Okay, so India required 10 hours of labor to produce 1 quintal of rice. Okay, USA required 20 hours of labor. We write here hours, labor hours required to produce same output. Okay, heading labor hours required to produce same output. So India required 10 hours of labor, USA required 20 hours of labor. Okay, for car, India required 20 hours of labor to produce one car, USA required 10 hours of labor to produce one car. Okay, and in terms of notation, you can write unit of labor required or amount of labor required to produce rice in India is 10. Okay, unit of labor required to produce 1 quintal of rice in India equal to 10. Okay, and this is amount or unit of labor required to produce rice. I put star for USA. In USA equal to 20. Okay, this is what unit of labor required to produce car in India is 20. Okay, 20 is written here. Similarly, unit of labor required to produce car for USA I write star equal 10. Okay, so we will compare this unit cost here for rice. So the unit cost in India per quintal of rice is less. So India has absolute cost advantage in the production of rice than USA. Okay, because in USA the unit cost, okay, or the amount of labor required to produce rice, okay, per quintal of rice, okay, is higher than in India. In the production of car, USA have no unit cost, so it has absolute cost advantage. Okay, this thing is very simple. You know. Okay, so India has absolute cost advantage in the production of rice. Okay, so endowment, factor endowment that we have is 100 hours. Okay, 100 hours of labor, right, in both countries. So we have to construct, okay, from this the output table. Okay, the maximum output that can be produced by devoting this 100 hours of labor. Okay, so for India, if it is using the same hours of labor, like 100 hours of labor, then how much in quintal of rice it is able to produce, and how, if it is only producing car, then how much car it is able to produce. Okay, so that I am constructing here, this one. Okay, so here you have India, USA, here you have rice, and here you have car. Here I have constructed labor requirement to produce same output. Okay, now what I am saying is that this same hours of labor, okay, this 100 hours of labor, how much output it can be produced, okay. Then I will write here produce more for same cost, okay. So if India devote this 100 hours of labor to produce rice, okay, so for producing 1 quintal of rice we require 10 hours of labor, right. So produce 2 quintal of rice we require 20 hours of labor. So by employing 100 hours of labor you are able to produce 10 quintal of rice, okay. Now if India want to produce car, only car, by employing this 100 hours of labor, so by employing 20 hours of labor, India is able to produce 1 car. It employ 40 hours of labor, it will be able to produce 2 car. If it employ 100 hours of labor, it will be able to produce only 5 car. Okay. So if India only choose to produce rice, it will be able to produce 10 quintal of rice by utilizing this 100 hours of labor. Or if India choose to produce only car, utilizing this 100 hours of labor, it will be able to produce 5 car. Okay. Now come to USA. To produce 1 quintal of rice, USA required 20 hours of labor. Let me check recording because in between last time recording stopped. Okay. So in order to produce 1 quintal of rice, USA required 20 hours of labor. In order to produce 2 quintal of rice, USA required 40 hours of labor. So in 100 hours, USA will be able to produce 5 quintal of rice. I put a stop for USA, okay? Now, in car production, USA can produce 1 car in 10 hours, 2 car in 20 hours, then in 100 hours, it can be able to produce 10 car. Okay? So if we look at this table also, okay? Produce more at same cost. So India is able to produce more rice, okay, than USA, okay? And same hours of labor, both are utilizing same cost, okay. So India has absolute cost advantage in the production of rice, and USA has absolute cost advantage in the production of car, because USA is able to produce more car, okay, by utilizing same hours of labor, okay. Now I have this table, okay. So when there is no trade, okay, so India must have to produce both goods if it want to consume rice also and car also, okay. So let me take some arbitrary example. Okay. This thing will be more clear, okay, when we will do comparative cost advantage. Okay. So I'm not putting some yes analysis. Okay. I'm just doing in a raw way. Okay. This analysis for absolute cost advantage. So hours of labor will be 100 hours, okay. This is given to us. So suppose India want to produce 2 car, okay. So to produce 1 car, India require 20 hours of labor. To produce 2 car, India will require 40 hours of labor, okay. So quantity of car that India is producing is 2, okay, and it requires 40 hours of labor. So the remaining labor hours is 40 minus 100 minus 40 is 60 hours. So if India devotes 60 hours of labor, how many quintal of rice it can produce? 1 quintal of rice India can produce in 10 hours. 2 quintal of rice India can produce in 20 hours. Therefore, in 60 hours, India can produce 6 quintal of rice. Okay, rice 6. Okay. So once India decide to produce car, automatically we will be knowing how much rice India is able to produce. Or in other words, we can say that once India decide to produce 6 quintal of 6 quintal of rice, okay, that means India is devoting out of this 100 hours of labor, 60 hours of labor to produce this 6 quintal of rice. Then the remaining 40 hours it will be devoting to produce car. And since they are full employment, we are employing one labor for production process. Okay. So this is the production and consumption that is happening within the Indian economy. Okay. Now for USA, this is for India. Okay. Now for for USA, and this is before trade. Okay, this is the decision, okay, that policymaker has taken in India, okay, in autarky situation, okay, before trade situation. So India is producing 2 car and 6 quintal of rice, okay, now for USA. Suppose in USA policymaker decide to have 4 car, okay, quantity of car is 4, okay. So to produce 1 car it requires 10 hours of labor. To produce 2 car it requires 20 hours of labor. So 40 hours of labor you are devoting to produce car in USA. Then for the remaining 60 hours you will just subtract 100 minus 40, okay. For the remaining 60 hours it will be producing rice, right? And 1 quintal of rice USA is able to produce in 20 hours. Therefore in 60 hours it will be able to produce 3 quintal of rice, okay. This is the output that we have, okay. So let me write this out. Before trade consumption possibility, okay. Before trade, this is the production carried out, and in this way both countries consuming also, okay. So let me make a box, okay. Write rice here, car here, okay. This is before trade for India and USA. Okay. Quantity of rice India producing 6, car 2, okay. And this one is quantity of rice in US is 3 and car is 4. So when I add these two things before trade, total one output will be total one production or output will be 9 quintal of rice and 6 unit of car, okay. So in one, the total production before trade, okay, in autarky situation, 9 quintal of rice or 9 unit of rice and 6 unit of car, okay. Now suppose trade take place, okay, and India has absolute cost advantage in the production of rice, that we know. USA has absolute cost advantage in the production of car, okay. So if India is not producing car, okay, and it devote this 100 hours of labor, so it will be able to produce 10 quintal of rice, right? Similarly, USA is more efficient in the production of car, okay, because the absolute cost is no, in terms of car that we have seen. USA required only 10 hours of labor to produce 1 car, India required 20 hours of labor. So if USA is not producing rice, so if it devote its entire labor hours, it will be able to produce 10 unit of car, okay. So let's suppose that both specialize in the production of this good. India specialized in the production of say rice, USA specialized in the production of car, okay. Let me check it for you. Okay. So after trade, okay, here we have rice, here we have car. Since India has absolute cost advantage in rice, India devote this 100 hours of labor and able to produce 10 unit of rice and not producing any car, okay. And USA not producing any rice, okay, because it had absolute cost advantage in the production of car, it is producing car, okay. Now look at this total one production. Total output of rice is 10, total output of car is 10. Total one production increases for rice from 9 quintal to 10 quintal, and for car 6 unit of car to 10 unit of car, okay. So when specialization takes place, one production increases, okay. But is it beneficial for both countries? That is the point. So according to Adam Smith, okay, a country will enter into voluntary exchange only when it will gain something, right? Otherwise they will not enter into voluntary exchange, okay. So before trade, what we have? 10 hours of labor, okay, like 10 hours of labor producing, you say, okay, let me put in this way, okay. So in India, 10 quintal of rice is traded for 5 car. Domestically, this is domestic exchange, right? Domestic exchange before trade. Okay. So when India is producing these two, okay. So when India is producing 2 car, okay, then 40 quintal of rice has to be traded. Okay. 40 quintal of rice need to be traded because for 1 car you got 20 hours of labor, okay, and that 20 hours of labor can produce 2 quintal of rice. Okay. Similarly, for 2 car, okay, you are trading 40 hours of labor that you can use for producing rice. So 4 quintal of rice you are trading. So when you are deciding to produce 10 rice, okay, then look at in this way, okay. So this is the trade that you have to make, okay. So divide both side by 5, it will be 2 rice equal to 1 car. So in India, 1 car is traded for 2 quintal of rice. This is the easy way to understand, okay. So this is the domestic exchange rate, okay. So when I am producing 2 quintal of rice, okay, I can go in the market and I can purchase 1 car. Okay, so this is a trade-off for this labor hours. Okay. Now suppose USA is also giving 1 car to India for 2 quintal of rice. Okay, 2 quintal of rice. So is it beneficial for India to trade? India will be indifferent, right? Because domestically also India is able to do the same. Okay, India is able to produce either 2 car, okay, no sorry, 2 quintal of rice, or if it is not producing this 2 quintal of rice, India can devote that resource to produce 1 car. Okay, so India will be indifferent and there is no point of doing trade also. Okay, only when India will get more car, say 1.1, generally we cannot break it. Okay, so put it 2 car. Okay, if this is the exchange rate, okay, in the international border, like if India is giving 2 quintal of rice and USA giving us 2 car, okay, then it is beneficial for us because domestically before trade I have to forego 2 quintal of rice, right, for 1 unit of car. Okay, because India is more efficient in the production of rice, so we are taking that India should be specializing in the production of rice. Okay, now suppose this is the exchange rate. Okay, so our question is it beneficial for India? Okay, also is it beneficial for USA? Yes, it is beneficial for India. Okay, if you look at this thing. Now look at for USA. Okay, in USA you have 5 rice equal to 10 car. Okay, so 1 quintal of rice you are able to produce when you are giving up resource that you can produce 2 car. Okay, so for 2 car, if you are able to get 2 quintal of rice, it is beneficial for USA also. Okay, so let's look at this possibility. Okay, now look at gain from trade. Gain from trade. Rice car. Okay, so this is our one exchange possibility that I have presented. So domestically in India, 2 rice equal 1 car. This is for India. Okay, before trade, and in USA, 1 quintal of rice equal to 2 car. Right. So let me have this. Okay, so I am saying that if trade takes place in this form, 2 rice equal to 2 car, it will be beneficial for both countries. Okay, since India is more efficient in the production of rice. It is specialized in rice, and USA is specialized in the production of car. Okay. Now, suppose India give 4 quintal of rice, okay, to USA. In return, India will get 4 car. Okay, this is a trade. 2 quintal of rice going to 2 car. So India get 4 car. Okay. Now, in order to make this 4 quintal of rice, okay, how much hours of labor India devote? 40 hours of labor, right? 40 hours of labor India devote, because to produce 1 quintal of rice, India require 10 hours of labor. Okay, India is making 10 quintal of rice. Okay, if 4 quintal of rice it is giving to USA, the remaining quintal it will consume domestically. So it is consuming 6 units of rice. Okay. Now, this is for India. Okay. USA is giving 4 car to India. It is producing 10. Okay. So USA has 6 car with it and 4 unit of rice. Right. Okay. So I want to look at this. Before trade, India is consuming rice 6 unit, 6 quintal. Here also it is consuming 6 quintal. Okay. But now India has more car after trade. This total should be 10. 10 quintal of rice, 10 quintal of car, or 10 unit of car. Okay. Before trade, USA is consuming 3 unit of rice. Now it is consuming 4 unit of rice. Okay. Before trade, USA has 4 car. Now it has more car. So in both, USA is gaining, India gain in car. So according to Adam Smith, it does not matter which country gain more, okay, or which country gain less. Okay. In this we can see that USA gain more, right? But India is also gaining. Okay. Overall, when we look at trade, okay, it will be beneficial for both countries. So overall, one output increases from say 9 plus 6, 15 to 20. Okay. And when both countries is specialized, okay, so both country will gain. Okay, it does not matter, I repeat again, it does not matter which country gain more and which country gain less. Okay, overall both country will gain when there is a voluntary exchange. Okay, both country will gain from trade. This is the main argument of Adam Smith. Okay, so I hope this is clear. And in this simple example, and the problem is this Adam Smith theory. Okay, let me check it. Okay, is that okay? So if a country is inefficient in the production of both goods, okay, so take this example. I have India, say rice here and car. Okay. This is India, USA. Six unit of price per man hour and 4 car per man hour. Sorry. This is. Let me put this thing. Okay, let me put other example. Okay? This thing will be. In this example, okay, basically this is output per man hour. Okay, so output in India is more than USA. So India has absolute advantage in the production of rice. Here, USA is able to produce more car. USA is able to produce more car than India. Then USA has absolute cost advantage in the production of car. Okay. So I am not talking about this example. I am talking about other example. Okay. Let me take it out. Okay. Now, So India requires suppose 20 hours of labor to produce 1 quintal of rice, and 20 hours of labor to produce 1 car. USA required 10 hours, and say this one 5 hours. Okay. So here when we look at rice, okay, so to produce 1 quintal of rice, India required 20 hours. Okay. USA required 10 hours of labor. Okay. So USA is efficient here in the production of rice. Okay. Similarly, when we look at car, India required 20 hours of labor and USA required 5 hours of labor. So USA is more efficient in the production of car. So according to Adam Smith, okay, if a country is efficient in production of own commodities and the other country is inefficient in the production of own commodities, then trade will not take place. Okay. Since India is inefficient in the production of own commodities, okay, because the hours of labor required to produce 1 car is more than USA. Similarly, the hours of labor required to produce 1 quintal of wheat is more in India than USA. Okay, trade between India and USA will not take place. This has been rectified by Ricardo in comparative cost advantage theory. Okay, so in the next section we will do comparative cost advantage theory. I hope this is clear now. Okay. Okay, write down notes of absolute cost advantage. According to Adam Smith, two nations trade with each other voluntarily. Then it should be the case that both nations must gain from trade. Then it must be the case that both nations must gain from trade. If one nation gain nothing or lost, it would simply refuse to trade. Okay. I repeat again. According to Adam Smith, two nations trade with each other voluntarily. When both nations gain from trade. If one nation gain nothing or lost, it would simply refuse to trade. Okay. Next paragraph. His absolute cost advantage theory, Adam Smith absolute cost advantage theory, focus on cost of one product and compare that product cost between countries. Adam Smith absolute cost advantage theory focus on cost of one product and compare that product cost between countries. A country has absolute cost advantage. After full stop, a country has absolute cost advantage when it is able to produce more goods and services in greater quantity for the same cost. When it is able to produce more goods and services in greater quantity for the same cost, or the same quantity at lower cost. So in this simplified model, two countries producing two goods using one factor of production. Two countries producing two goods using one factor of production neighbor. His theory is based on the following assumption. Number one, there is perfect competition in both product and factor market. No transportation cost. Neighbor is the only factor of production. It is based on neighbor theory of value. Taste and preference of both countries are same. Neighbor is mobile within countries, okay, but it is immobile across countries, between countries, okay. Neighbor is mobile within country, but it is immobile between countries. Neighbor is not homogeneous in all countries, okay. This is what I discussed in detail already. There is no trade barrier, okay. There is no trade barrier like tariff, import duty, something like that. Okay. Unit of labor required to produce output, okay, is constant. So we have constant return to screen in this model, and then you have full employment. There is no unemployment kind of thing going on. Okay, there is a full employment. Again, I repeat assumption. First is perfect competition. Second, no transportation cost. Third one is labor is the one effect of production. Fourth, it is based on labor theory of value. So value of a commodity, or you can say price of a commodity, is determined by the amount of labor required to produce that commodity. Fifth one, taste and preference of both countries are same. Okay. Six, no mobility within there is a mobility within countries. Labor is mobile within countries and immobile across countries. Okay. Then labor is not homogeneous in all countries, and this is an important assumption because of this differences in technology that we have trade between countries. Then no trade barrier like import duty, export, there is a tariff, okay, export duty, tariff, etc. Unit labor required to produce output is fixed, okay. So when you are doubling the input, output is also double. It is assumed to have constant return to second. Then you have full employment assumption, okay. After that, write the next paragraph. Trade between two countries would take place. Trade between two countries would take place if each of the two countries has an absolute lower cost. If each of the two countries has absolute lower cost in the production of one of the commodity. In the production of one of the commodity. Trade between two countries would take place. Trade between two countries would take place if each of the two countries had an absolute lower cost in the production of one of the commodities. Next paragraph. Absolute advantage risen from the specialization of labor. Absolute cost advantage risen from the specialization of labor proposed by Adam Smith in his theory. When trade or exchange of goods and service expand from domestic trade to international trade, when trade or exchange of goods and services expand from domestic trade to international trade, greater division of labor or specialization of labor leads to a significant higher productivity per unit of labor. A significant higher productivity per unit of labor, and in turn lower cost of production. Like in India, if India devote entire labor to produce rice, okay, the cost of production reduces because the cost of producing car is more. You require 20 hours of labor to produce one car, right? So this is what this statement is saying. When I repeat again, when trade or exchange of goods and service expand from domestic trade to international trade, greater division of labor will be there. Okay, before India has to produce car also before trade, right? So now there is a greater division of labor. India labor now can focus on rice production, okay, and USA labor can focus on car production. So when trade or exchange of goods and service expand from domestic trade to international trade, greater division of labor or specialization of labor leads to a significant higher productivity per unit of labor, and in turn lower cost of production. Okay, and in turn lower cost of production. Then change the paragraph. According to Adam Smith, trade between two nations is based on absolute advantage. According to Adam Smith, trade between two nations is based on absolute advantage. When one nation is more efficient or has an absolute advantage, when one nation is more efficient or has an absolute advantage than another in the production of one commodity, then another in the production of one commodity, but is less efficient or has an absolute disadvantage, but is less efficient or has an absolute disadvantage than the other nation in producing a second commodity, comma, then both nations can gain by each specializing in the production of the commodity of its absolute advantage and exchanging part of its output with the other nation for the commodity of its absolute disadvantage. Okay, I repeat again. According to Adam Smith, trade between two nations is based on absolute advantage. When one nation is more efficient, or has an absolute advantage than another, when one nation is more efficient or has an absolute advantage than another in the production of one commodity, but is less efficient or has an absolute disadvantage than another, than the other nation, in producing a second commodity, comma, then both nations can gain by easily specializing. Then both nations can gain by easily then both nations can gain by each, sorry, not easily. Then both nations can gain by each specializing in the production of the commodity, of its absolute advantage, and exchanging part of its output with the other nation for the commodity of its absolute disadvantage. Okay, full stop. By this process, resources are utilized in the most efficient way. And the output of both commodities will rise. Like for rice, from 9 quintal it increases to 10 quintal, for kite from 6 to 10, right? This increase in the output of both commodities measure the gain from specialization. This increase in the output of both commodities measures the gain from specialization in production available to be divided between the two nations through trade. I repeat again, this increase in the output of both commodities measure the gain from specialization in production available to be divided between the two nations through trade. Okay, now let me give you one example that I have given you already. So here you have rice, okay, and here you take, say, Knot, okay, better, easy. Then you have India and USA. Instead of car, I have taken Knot, okay. Then 6, 4, 1, 5. So this is output, okay. So an hours of labor produce 6 units of rice in India and 1 unit of rice in USA. Okay, so India has absolute cost advantage in the production of rice. Now look at Knot. An hours of labor produce 4 units of Knot in India and it produce 5 units of Knot in USA. So USA has absolute cost advantage in the production of Knot. Now before trade, what will be domestic exchange going on? 6 rice for 4 Knot in India, right? For India. for an hours of labor, India can have 6 kg of rice, and hours of labor can produce 6 rice. Okay, you can use that hours of labor to produce 4 cloth. Okay, so this is a domestic exchange. Okay, in USA, what will be domestic exchange? 1 rice equal to 5 cloth, and hours of labor can produce 1 kg of rice or 5 units of cloth. Okay, now suppose USA want to trade with India. Okay, and say that okay, you give me 6 rice. Okay, because I am not good in producing rice, I will give you 4 cloth. Okay, you give me 6 kg of rice, because I am not good in producing rice, you give me 4 units of cloth. Will India trade? India will be indifferent. It will not want to trade. Why take the trouble of doing international trade, right? Domestically, I can produce 4 cloth. So when USA increases to 5 cloth, will India trade? Yes, India will trade, because an hours of labor can produce only 4 cloth. Okay, but when I give this hours of labor to produce rice, I am able to produce 6 units of rice, 6 kg of rice, and trade with USA because there is no transportation cost. Okay, and get 5 units of cloth. So there will be a gain of 1 unit of cloth for an hours of labor, right? So 6 are equal to 5 6. So this is a trade that is beneficial for India. Okay. Now look at USA. Okay. So in USA, okay, and hours of labor that you are devoting, okay, so you are able to produce 5 cloth, or you are able to produce 1 unit of rice. Okay. Then by trading with India, okay, in this format, okay, how much is the gain here? 5 kg of rice, right? 5 kg of rice is the gain, and India is gaining 1 unit of cloth. Okay, or you can say that if it is specialized, okay, it can produce more cloth because it is better in, it is more efficient than in India. Okay, so USA has 5 kg of rice gain, India has 1 unit of cloth gain. It is immaterial which country is gaining more or which country is gaining less. Okay, the important thing is that both countries gain from trade. Okay, now suppose this to be 6 and 6. Okay, 1 rice for 1 cloth. Look at this. So now, when India gives 6 rice, okay, India is getting 6 cloth. So India is gaining 2 cloth, right? Right? In order to produce 1 kg of rice, USA require 1 hours of labor. So 6 rice that USA is getting, in order to produce 6 kg of rice, India requires USA requires 6 hours of labor. So in 6 hours of labor, USA can produce 5 into 6, 30 units of cloth. Right? Because in 1 hour, USA is producing 5 units of cloth, so it is able to produce 30 units of cloth. Okay? If it is giving 6 cloth to India and getting 6 rice, okay, it can retain 24 cloth in the economy. Right? So it does not matter which country is gaining. India is also gaining 2 extra cloth. Right? So write down. Absolute advantage. Explain only a very small part of one trade. Absolute advantage. Explain only a very small part of one trade. It neglects trade between country efficient in the production of own goods with that of country inefficient in the production of own goods. It neglects trade between countries efficient in the production of own goods with that of country inefficient in the production of own goods. I repeat again. Absolute advantage. Explain only a very small part of one trade. Full stop. It neglects trade between countries efficient in the production of own goods with that of countries inefficient in the production of own goods. Full stop. However, Adam Smith theory is one of the classical contribution that broke mercantilists' belief that trade is a zero-sum game. That broke mercantilists' belief system that trade is a zero-sum game. According to Adam Smith, if there is a voluntary exchange, then both countries can gain from trade. Okay. So in the next lecture, we will do competitive cost advantage theory. And if there is any doubt, then we will have online session. You people can clear that out. Okay. So thank you for watching video.